Hey, I just wanted to share with you an idea that I came across in a book I've been reading, actually, a couple of books I've been reading. And that's always really exciting when I stumble upon something that may be phrased differently in different books, but has this connecting thread. And I love philosophy, I love history, I love humanities in general. So I was reading this book 10 Philosophical Mistakes by Mr. Mortimer J. Adler. He's written a number of books, a few of which I've read. The most popular, perhaps, the book he's best well known for is his book, How to Read a Book, which you might be thinking, I learned how to read in elementary school. But do check that out. Check that book out. Going off topic already. This isn't good. So, this book, 10 Philosophical Mistakes, I want to just focus on one thing I drew from this book. At the end of his chapter on knowledge and opinion, he makes this case that philosophy is everyone's business. The reason that is, it's because philosophy deals with what it means to do what you're doing. Because whatever your career, whatever your job, he says that we all have a shared vocation to be a good human being. In fact, he says it better, I think, in his other book. But I can find it real fast. All right. This is a different book called 6 Great Ideas. And page 15, he says, "This explains why philosophy can be everybody's business, as the special sciences, including those that apply to mathematics, are not. Precisely because it can be everybody's business, it should be part of everyone's general education. Becoming acquainted and conversant with the great ideas will not prepare the individual for any special career." So he puts that out there, right? You can think about truth, goodness, and beauty. You're not going to be a great car repairman or microbiologist or whatever. That's not going to give you the training you need for those things. He says that. In business, the learned professions, or in highly skilled occupations of one technical sort or another, specialized schooling is required for that. That's good. We want that. We don't want people who identify as highly skilled technicians just because they read some Plato. That would not be good. So specialized schooling is required for that. But everyone is called to one common human vocation, that of being a good citizen and a thoughtful human being. Only by the presence of philosophy in the general schooling of all is it everyone prepared to discharge the obligations common to all, because all are human beings. Schooling is essentially humanistic only to the extent that it is tinged with philosophy and introduction to the great ideas. So, that's him pitching in here on the 6 great ideas. You can see that. Talking about why it's everyone's business. It's not guarded, I should say, with an asterisk. It shouldn't at least be guarded by technical language or jargon, because this is everyone's common experience. What is real? What does it mean for something to be real? How do I know it? What are the modes that I can rely upon to know if something is true? And what's the difference between truth and opinion? Can I really know anything at all? And if so, what of it? Do these things that I think I can know about what is real have any impact on how I should live my life? Do I have a purpose? How am I to engage with other people? What kind of government should we have? Or what, given what I think I know about teleology or human purpose and what is real, what government is the best? Right? These all sound like highfalutin questions that maybe don't cross our minds every day, but they are what are called the indestructible questions, and I'll talk about that. That's from a different book, but we might think of other questions too, like where should I live? Whom should I marry? How many kids should I have? Or how am I maybe better is how will I raise those kids? What career will I pursue? What kind of a relationship do I want to have with my family and friends? That might sound a little bit more pedestrian, maybe a little bit more familiar. And philosophy does come into that. But also just the humanities, these are the questions that are everybody's business. But how we think about them, how we can get actual knowledge, not knowledge, but guidance and wisdom on them, won't come from facts. So again, from the very last part of his chapter here on knowledge and opinion, he says, knowledge is not the highest of the intellectual goods. Of higher value is understanding, and beyond that, wisdom. So you could think of it as a pyramid. We talk a lot about, or we have, especially in the last decade, about how much data is generated every day by all the apps and devices and interactions and things like that. All these data are just exploding constantly. Data everywhere. And maybe a step above data, you could say there are certain facts. And you can think of a fact like a row in like an Excel spreadsheet, or a row in a SQL table, where it's like, on this date, this person took this action, or something like that, right? There's a fact in and of itself, not terribly interesting, but perhaps when looked upon with lots of other information, you can then see some patterns. And with that pattern, you're now moving up to knowledge. And knowledge is defined by Mr. Adler in this book. It could be thought of as some hold on the truth, right? Some grasp upon what is there, or what's going on. And that's like my profession, what I do, data science and data analytics. That's kind of what it's all built upon. We want to know the truth of, say, of a customer. What's the pattern? What's going on there, right? But we can only go so far with knowledge. And that's what science gives us. Science gives us knowledge, and science is great. Thank goodness for science. And what it can give us as a tool for what it can do, it's great. Awesome. Total fan. It's gold. But it is a tool. I don't think I could say it is the tool, because that's not a scientific statement. That would be relying upon philosophy, right? So moving above knowledge and these patterns, we have understanding and then wisdom. And he says here that these goods, understanding and wisdom, to whatever extent they can be achieved, become ours through philosophical thought and not scientific knowledge. So we're not going to look under a microscope and know, like, should we take that stem cell and use it for something else? It's not going to tell you. It's not going to say one way or another. Scientific knowledge is going to tell us a lot, but it's not going to give us the wisdom and knowledge to direct our lives. Some philosophers out there think differently, and we can talk about that at a different time, because that'd be interesting. But he says philosophy makes its contribution not only as a body of knowledge, but also because it is through philosophical thought that we are able to understand everything else we know. Everything else that we know. When I read this, I think of Plato's Republic. I think it's book 7, where Socrates gives the allegory of the cave. And in a nutshell, in the cave, you're chained and bound, so you can only see the shadows on the wall. And these shadows are created by the puppeteers and the manipulators behind a wall that are moving objects. And there's a great big fire behind them, and all the prisoners can see are the shadows dancing around on the wall. And to them, that is reality, right? That is their metaphysics, meaning that is what is true. That is what is real for them. Anyways, not to get too far down into that, but imagine if someone were to break free and to turn their eyes away from the wall and see that burning light of the fire, and then stumble out using that light, stumble out of the cave into the light of the day. That light would be overwhelming, and it would seem strange and alien, uncomfortable, and they would stumble about. But eventually they would start to see, oh, there's a lot more than just shadows on a wall. Look, there's water over here. Oh, interesting. I can look in the water. Oh, look at that. There's a reflection. But that's not me. That's me, but it's not me. Oh, interesting. Oh, there's a shadow of a tree. Oh, it's like the tree, but it's not the tree. Okay, so anyway, read it. It's much better than what I'm doing here. But Plato, through Socrates, as written by Plato, expounds this idea of escaping from darkness and moving to the light. And the light, of course, is an analogy towards wisdom. And as you move higher and higher into the higher echelons of reason, you begin to comprehend the good itself, not just the examples or the manifestations of good, but the good itself. So it is that light, right? The light of the sun that gives us the light by which we can see everything else on the ground and discern everything. He's saying that kind of here. At least that's what it made me think. He says, it is through that philosophical thought that we are able to understand everything else we know. I can carry on a lot longer. There's some other good books I'd like to talk about. Just been talking about this one, Mortimer Adler, 10 Philosophical Mistakes. Gabriel Marcel, Man Against Mass Society, talks about how philosophers should never desert the world, even with all of its terrible and maybe even vexatious problems. We would be guilty of a sort of desertion. Will Durant, even just in this preface to his second edition, talks about how human knowledge has become so vast, so every field, think about like physics and psychology and biology, everything within the last, say, 200 years has become so expansive and so deep. Again, awesome. Science, this is cool. But it's become so fragmented that philosophy started to lose its ability to coordinate and create wisdom from all of this. And so he says it hid itself. It retreated. He says philosophy itself, which had once summoned all the sciences to its aid in making a coherent image of the world and an alluring picture of the good. An alluring picture of the good, right? That's what we were just talking about with Plato and the good. It says it found its task of coordination too stupendous for its courage, ran away from all these battlefronts of truth, and hid itself in recondite and narrow lanes, timidly secure from the issues and responsibilities of life. Human knowledge had become too great for the human mind. Whoa. Will Durant's book, The Story of Philosophy, that's what I'm reading from. He talks about how perspective is lost and facts replace understanding and knowledge ceased to generate wisdom. So it kind of collapsed down, and now we're left with just facts. What do we do with that? He says we need to, I'm summarizing here, I'm skipping a lot, but he calls for the humanization of knowledge, and that humanization of knowledge is creating understanding and breaking down those barriers and helping people integrate it. And Plato was one of the first to do this. So, to wrap this up, I would just say, don't be afraid of learning. Don't be afraid of reading big names like Will Durant or Gabriel Marcel or Mortimer Adler or Plato, right? They were written for you. They were not written to be studied in academia. They were written to help ordinary people like me. And they've been very helpful, really. Very enlightening, very helpful, and given me cause to, to feel hopeful, honestly. Nietzsche said that history should serve the living, and I think Kierkegaard said something like that as well. But it should vivify, right? It's interesting to study. It's interesting to learn, to increase your knowledge. But at the end of the day, so what? I'm not reading these books so I can get better at my job. I'm reading these books so I can be better at my vocation to live a good life and to maybe help others along the way if I can. Anyways, I'd like to spend more time talking to you, if I can, about reading and about thinking out of a box. This is my box here, my Zettelkasten, if you will. It's analog, and I've got a lot of thoughts in here, and my poor wife, she's probably so sick and tired of me telling them all to her. And so I think what I'd like to do is share some of my thoughts about the humanities, about philosophy, maybe some theology, but mainly just trying to think and making no pretenses of being a professional in any sense of the word, right? Not like a PhD or nothing like that. But that I think the activity is a good activity to do. It's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to use your mind and to try and get some wisdom. Where do you go to wisdom? Like, where do you go for wisdom? Maybe you can let me know. And I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for your time. Talk to you later.